up? It's your boy T-Bone Reaction. Today's Music Money. About to get a video from the homie Luke L Train from Luke Kitchen, talking about the one and only man who, the legend who changed the game and the sound with 3 iconic drum machines as well too that put a staple in a lot of music and more importantly in hip hop. None other than Roger Linn. Started out with the LM-1 and then infamous LinnDrum, then second it to the one that would change the game of all, the MPC. Starting with MPC 60. So this is from Luke Kitchen, how Roger Linn's drum machines changed music forever as well too. Always love L Train's Luke Kitchen's story breakdown on music on the machine's instrument that changed the game of music, as well as the artists, the producers themselves who changed the game in their own way. So without further ado, let's check it out.
For almost 100 years, musicians have been trying to get machines to play rhythm. But out of all of the inventors, engineers, and companies that built these rhythm boxes, one name runs through more eras of music than almost any other: Roger Linn. His LM-1 helped shape Prince's early 80s sound. The LinnDrum became part of the fabric of 80s pop, R&B, and dance music. And the MPC became one of hip-hop's defining instruments. And that's before you even get into the innovations themselves. Sampled drums, swing, timing correction, and the iconic 16-pad layout. So how did a would-be rock star from California end up changing the way we hear drums? To understand that, we need to go back to 1950.
And that's good to find out. It takes a musician to do something like that. So yeah, to find that he was a rock star, original rock star and all of that. Yeah, it takes a musician to, to change the game of music as well too. Now good to be a musician in the way too, but to be a true music or no music as well, but to be a true musician to do that, that's what's up.
50s California. Roger Linn's story starts in Whittier, California in the 1950s, in a house where music was already part of everyday life.
My father was a music professor. He taught music theory and composition at the University of Southern California.
That's a good starting background to being taught as a professor. Wow. How is Roger Linn's, by the way? Just curious. He is 70. Wow. I know I thought. Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, yeah, because if they say starting in the 50s, yeah, 70. He's 70 years old. He's born in 1955.
My mother would sing light opera and played piano. And so there were influences there, but also this was the 60s. In the 60s, music was the way that people communicated with each other.
I started playing guitar when I was about 8 and studied classical guitar. I was more interested in Beatles, all the things that people were doing with tones. There were a lot of guitar pedals at the time, and they were all just analog guitar pedals. I had always had an interest in electronics, and so I would take these things apart and basically do the equivalent of what people currently call circuit bending.
At that point, Roger wasn't dreaming of making instruments for other musicians. He was dreaming of being one himself.
I had bands starting in my teenage years. I think the first band we did a lot of Cream songs, Eric Clapton. And of course, I, like everyone else at the time, saw myself as a professional guitarist. I wanted to be a rock star.
I had trouble getting the big gigs. People in the band Toto, they were all the top studio musicians in Los Angeles, and they would get all the big gigs, and I would get the ones that they would throw away.
I didn't really have the true artist vision to be able to make a significant impact.
You know what? Watching this is low-key inspirational. DJ as well too. Sometimes I struggle to get gigs. I need to get to sign something or get some ideas, something like that. Who knows?
Had the music, but I found out over time that my calling was really in making the musical instruments and not so much making beautiful music.
One of the places where that started to take shape was around Leon Russell, the musician, songwriter, and producer who became one of Roger's most important early mentors.
I started working with him when I was 18 or 19, and I sometimes like to say I went to the University of Leon Russell. He knew so much about music and about music production, songwriting, performance. Although I did play guitar on his tours, my attraction to him was that I did multiple things. I could engineer his records, I knew all about technology, synthesizers, and so I could advise him on
Wow, good start right there.
things to buy. And I lived with him at his house, so I was able to just basically live in the studio.
Then, in the mid-70s, the first affordable microcomputer chips started to appear. To most people, these early computers looked primitive, expensive, and confusing. But Roger saw the potential.
I got my first computer, this is about 74, for about $3,000.
Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ. A laptop nowadays costs like under $1,000. Computers back then, $3,000. Jesus Christ. Oh, man. And they think we had, shoot. And folks were playing ball of stuff that was down. Shit, they had it crazy back then. Jesus Christ. Shoot. $3,000 shit. I don't think I know a computer that costs that much now. Man, and it's a lot. And think about it, got a lot of new technology with it. I don't think I know a laptop. Let me see. Is there a laptop that costs around a laptop that costs? It might be. It could. I'm probably. Is there a laptop that's $3,000? That's 30. No. Oh yeah, of course the gamer ones. Of course the gamer ones. Of course, I guess the gamer ones here. I mean, there's some less expensive gamer ones though. But Jesus,
Said you're crazy. But this box does nothing. There's a little light on it and got a black and white TV screen.
Exactly.
You get how much more on? Learned about computer programming and actually created my own programmable drum machine.
I developed an early prototype of the drum machine that was programmable but had synthesized sounds.
Wow.
I showed it to Leon, and he said, I'd like to use that on my next album. And this is an album called Life and Love.
This wasn't the birth of the drum machine. That story stretches back to the 1930s with Henry Cowell and Leon Theremin's Rhythmicon. And by the 60s and 70s, figures like Iketaro Kakahashi were bringing rhythm boxes into the commercial world through Ace Tone and Roland. But it was Roger's first step into a problem he kept returning to: how to make drum machines more useful for people actually making records.
The hardest thing to play for me and to record in my little home demo studio was drums. There were drum machines at the time, but they were all preset drum machines, and they all didn't sound very good. They sounded like crickets on a bad day. I had read some academic papers on the concept of sampling, but I thought if I only need to store maybe 1/8 of a second of a snare drum and only 1/8 of a second of a bass drum, that it might be affordable.
And the way those sounds were captured was surprisingly simple.
Okay.
However, when Roger showed an early prototype to Stevie Wonder, it forced him to rethink the way a musician should interact with the machine.
I first made
Not surprised, Stevie Wonder is definitely, if not one of the godfather when it comes to electronic music and music, for sure.
a prototype of a drum machine on a computer, and it had a screen for programming. And I went down to Stevie Wonder to show it to him. And obviously he's a sightless person. And I saw, this makes no sense. It's a visual instrument for people who play music. So that's when I came up with a real-time programming system, and it was largely because of that experience of seeing Stevie Wonder. The first product was the LM-1 drum computer. They were all sampled sounds for the first time, and then a novel software program for recording your own drum beats. You would press record and play, and you'd hear a metronome. You'd hit the drum pads in time to the metronome, and then what you just recorded would loop back 2 measures later with all the timing errors corrected.
The sampled sounds were what made people stop and listen. But buried inside the machine was another idea producers now take for granted: swing, something Roger had first learned about from Leon Russell.
He actually taught me about the fact that some drummers will use various amounts of swing timing. It's not always a perfect swing, like, and it's not always perfectly straight, but sometimes it's in between, like. I said, well, if I just write in the software the ability to delay every alternate 16th note and vary the amount of delay, then you get that variable amount of swing timing.
When Rogers started showing the machine around Los Angeles, it didn't need much explaining, as the sounds did most of the work.
To spread the word, my marketing department, which was me, through some of my musician friends, I would do a demonstration of an early prototype. This consisted of a cardboard box with some early circuit boards and wires hanging out of it. But if you pressed the buttons on the circuit boards, it would make those drum sounds, and people would just be amazed. So I told them it costs $5,000, but I'll need a $2,500 deposit, which I used basically just to fund my little operation.
Roger originally saw the LM-1 as a songwriting tool, but in the hands of artists like Michael Jackson on tracks such as Billie Jean, it quickly became a part of the sounds of early 80s pop and R&B.
Alright.
And then there was Prince.
Damn.
Was my marketing department, my friend.
Both goats. Man, both of the goats. I mean, we got one goat earlier. Use a prototype of a Stevie Wonder. And then you got Michael Jackson and Prince. Damn. Work with the ghosts already, man.
His company. I didn't need to do any advertising. It's a Prince record. And he used it so creatively.
You can hear that approach clearly on tracks like When Doves Cry. It doesn't feel like Prince is trying to recreate a drummer. It feels like he's building a new kind of rhythm section using the LM-1.
It had individual outputs for all of the sounds, kick, snare, hat, claps, clave, all the toms. So Prince could take the LM-1 and he could take the claps and run it through the flanger. So we would take his Boss pedal board from his guitar rig and just plug it into the output of the drum machine, and we could send claps or snare or toms usually through this mixture of the heavy metal pedal and the flanger and the chorus and the delay and the distortion. So dialing in on that pedal board was one of the tricks that he invented.
Roger had built a drum machine around real drum sounds, but in the hands of the artists, it became a way to create something a real drummer couldn't quite do.
Prince, when he did all those early recordings, Little Red Corvette and such, in 1999, and all those hits that used the original LM-1, it seemed like he was going for a synthetic sound, a surreal sound, which I see in retrospect was an interesting new sound that you couldn't get out of a drummer.
Right, quick break before we get back into the story. If this is your first time on the channel, I have a sample pack label called Loop Kitchen. We make soulful melodic compositions with full stems, so you can chop them up, rearrange them, or build a whole beat around them. And here's one I made earlier. Right now, all the Loop Kitchen packs are buy one get one free with the code LinnSanity. And if you want to share what you make, come join the Discord.
The names come up with these codes, yo. LinnSanity. Shout out to Jeremy Linn, man.
We've got beat battles, feedback channels, weekly cook-ups, and a really nice little producer community over there. And the links to the packs and the Discord are in the description. The LM-1 was proof of concept, but it was Roger's next drum machine, the LinnDrum, that helped the idea really spread.
When the LM-1 came out, it
So
originally
let me find out Jimmy Jam was seriously using the LinnDrum for the Janet album. Who I'm gonna be inspired as hell. If I think I have like a LinnDrum. No, yeah, I think I do have a LinnDrum sample pack in my MPC. Oh man. I actually think I use it for the dark my 80s beat I did a couple times. The 80s beat you hear on my intro while I do like 80s stuff is that I use that, I think. Yep.
Sold for $5,000 US, and when the second product, the LinnDrum, came out, it sold for $3,000. So a big part of the advantage was making it cheaper, so more people could buy it.
And it wasn't just cheaper; the machine itself had improved.
I think I learned a little
It's
bit better.
crazy how they do that though, like because with DJ equipment, they're at least like a lower version, like a slightly cheaper version, but it have like a little more feature than the bigger one have as well too. Like for example, the when DJ X came out, the first DJ X came out, had everything, the tools and everything. And then the DJ SR, I think the SR is The lower one, yeah, the SR is the 2-liter one. It has like, it only was like 2-channel, but it has some extra stuff that the XX didn't have, like extra, little slightly extra feature that XX didn't have though. So yeah, it's interesting though. But the only disadvantage was only plug and play by via laptop via USB though. You couldn't plug it in as is.
About how to make better recordings. I had more recordings in my library that I stole from all the stars that sent their tapes in. Computer memory was starting to come down because of all the advances in technology and the increased demand for it. The general higher quality, although they were still 8-bit sampling. And also the operating system was a little bit more refined, did more things.
Where the LM-1 couldn't include crash or ride symbols because of memory limitations.
Like I said, it had like a little more feature, but it would be it would have a disadvantage or some feature that the more expensive one would have though. I get it now. Yep, exactly what I'm talking about.
Could now include those longer samples. As the machines had become more affordable, it started pushing Rogers' ideas further into the sound of 80s pop and R&B.
Look at the collection. Go back. Look at the collection that used this. Go back real quick.
Where the LM-1 couldn't include crash or ride symbols because of memory limitations, the LinnDrum could now include those longer samples. As the machines
got here, I want to break free, y'all. 5 minutes. Have Houdini's second album,
become more
Friends,
affordable. It started pushing Rogers' ideas
Request Line
further into the sound of 80s pop and R&B. One of the clearest examples came through the Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis produced Janet Jackson album Control.
All of those early Prince records were all LM-1 records, so that's how we were familiar.
Oh, yep. I forgot why I quickly forgot they were part of time. So and Palms were associated with Prince. So man, they got fired, and not to mention they got fired by Prince. Jimmy Jam was fired for Prince because of them doing production as well too, and while them being fired, it wouldn't be the dynamic duo, flight time duo we have. So ironically, there we have it. A little tip right there.
With the idea, and then when the newer version came out, which was the LinnDrum, the thing we loved about it so much was, first of all, I was a drummer, so the idea of a drum machine and making beats was very natural to me. But I love the fact that you could switch the sound, the little chips or whatever, you could change them to make different sounds. The first album that we used it on extensively was Janet's Control album. And pretty much every beat on that album is all LinnDrum. It's just that we're changing the chips to make the sounds.
And once again, connects with Jackson. He's mentioned that good amount of Michael Jackson's album Thriller was used the LM-1, which was the early version of the LinnDrum. And then Jackson break, and then Thriller is Michael Jackson's big breakout album. Off the Wall is the breakout debut, but Thriller is the album. Well, Janet Jackson was the breakout album for her as well too. That got a lot of recognition as well too, and then Real Nation made more of a Thriller, but still, and even LinnDrum. So yeah, good connection right there.
Sound different, and it was obviously revolutionary in the way that record was able to be made. It was so easy to get around the LinnDrum. The other thing I liked about it was because it had pads. I would make a loop sometimes, but then I do my own fills and my own stuff just freehand. And that way, everything had a live feel to it. So the spontaneity of being able to work like that, I love that.
That's what gave Control its unique sound. The drums were programmed, but they didn't feel lifeless.
You could quantize stuff, but you could also not do it. And so you could make it keep that live feel. And that for us was important because we always wanted our records to sound like a performance, meaning that it was happening in the spur of the moment. And that was really important to be able to do that.
After the LM-1 and the LinnDrum, Rogers' next machine should have been a victory lap. Instead, it nearly ended everything.
Oh, this joint,
in 1984, Linn Electronics released the Linn 9000.
Yep.
It combined sampled drums, touch-sensitive pads, user sampling, and a multi-track MIDI.
It sounds like Jim Jam still using this joint because that's another joint, Jim Jam joint.
sequencer in one box. But straight out of the gate, there were problems.
It had hardware issues, it had mechanical issues, it was too expensive. The dumbest thing I did was to cancel the previous product, the LinnDrum, which people still wanted. I just assumed, why would they want the old one when the new one's so much cooler?
And then I kind of understand from DJ perspective. I had heard about like other music production instruments too. Like they try to expand it more, a little more, and then to be more of a bust than a successor as well too. Though same with DJ Gears, well too. They add a little more to it, but instead of being a hit and being more of a bust than a hit, though as well too. Some people would like this, some not many didn't. So yeah.
Thought I had to be a bit.
And not surprised on that one, because you look at it though, if you look at it though, you can kind of see it looked like it could have been you're going to understand why it was going to be a bust to the successor.
Businessman and hire other people to do the design, and it didn't turn out quite as good as I had thought. Eventually, that's what brought the company down, together with my horrible business management skills.
The ideas were there.
And that's when he decided to go to Akai.
But the Linn 9000 arrived before Linn Electronics could really
if you look my butt on the cool. If you look at that Linn 9000 compared to what the LinnDrum and L1 is, the pads are bigger. You can almost see that's like almost a slight pro. Indeed, even the little stuff right there, that can low key can be like a slight prototype for the MPC that come later on. So that's something to think about on the cool.
I ran out of money and there were too many bills to pay. And so in 1986, Linn Electronics just shut its doors.
Here we go.
When the company collapsed, Roger Linn's story could have ended there. But just as one chapter was closing, another opened when he got a call from Akai.
In '86, I was contacted by the Akai company. They contacted me and then they said, "You're very good at creating these things. We're very good at all the production, the sales, and the marketing, all that stuff. Why don't we work together?" The first product was called the MPC 60 MIDI Production Center, and this was basically.
And look at the tags. See, if you look at the pads of that, and we go back a little bit, to that the Linn 9000. If I get it, you see how the pads on that a little bit. Yeah, that Linn 9000 was low key a precursor, almost like a slight prototype to the MPC though. Even like the numbers button on the side. That's something cool. Like it was like a late addition, a late fail of the Linn system, but an early precursor to the MPC system.
Production center. And this was basically an improved version, in a sense, of the Linn 9000.
Yeah, I just talked it up!
Good production techniques that I learned from the Akai company. We were able to make something for a reasonable price that really had all the features that we wanted to have.
The MPC 60 was not a complete reinvention. It was an amalgamation of ideas from the Linn 9000 and Roger's unreleased LinnDrum MIDI studio, including the now standard 4x4.
Again, like I said, that was, and the Linn MIDI studio is like that as well too, because they stole a piece from the Linn 9000.
4-pad setup, and the timing of its release was perfect.
I guess what I didn't expect was the birth of hip-hop, which was very fortuitous because the hip-hop artists, the vast majority of them, used my MPC 60 to create their tracks, and that was just a lucky accident of timing.
Part of what made the MPC 60 so accessible was that Roger designed it to be simple to use.
The MPC 60
and it
didn't
still
make
is,
you
to be
think
honest.
differently. For example, think like a computer. You could just bash those little rubber pads with your fingers and put in the beats you heard, and it would play them back with things like the timing corrected and adding swing timing to them.
I made the assumption that all the people who would buy it are as impatient as I am and don't want to read manuals. What I tried to do was set it up so that when you take it out of the box, you can immediately just press play and you hear beats. All the settings for the quantization, the swing, all that stuff were just set the way most people want them. You didn't have to set it up first, anything. It would just...
That's true, because my thing right here was like set already though. I barely tweaked it or anything and nothing like that.
work.
That's one of the reasons it was embraced by hip-hop, being used by producers across the spectrum, including by DJ Premier.
We were working on the daily operation album for Gangstar. First track I was working on was flip the script.
Brave is the knave who steps up to be slayed by the one who forgave him for his first mistakes. He best behave.
I was still using the LS's drum machine. The engineer who worked at D&D, Eddie Sancho, he watched the way I was programming my beats on the LS's, and he said, yo, the way you lay your tracks and print them and line them up, you're better off using the MP. And from that day, I was hooked.
But even Roger couldn't have guessed how producers were going to take the machine and run with it.
When I first made the MPC 60, I remember being at a NAMM show, and the MPC 60 had a whopping 26 seconds of sampling time. And somebody said to me, could I have more sampling time? I said, how much? They said 2 or 3 minutes. I said, what would you use that for? They said, well, I'd like to take an entire measure or 2 measures of a record and use that as a basis for a song.
Chump is the first record I made on the MP.
Yeah.
It was so many samples everywhere in that song.
He's a big user of the MPC.
I think I was just so happy that I had found a machine that I could just do whatever. I don't even know why I chopped the sample. I was just in sample heaven in this machine. I made the entire song inside the MP.
After the MPC 60, Roger and Akai continued refining the idea. 5 years later, they came back with the MPC 3000. It improved the sample resolution to 16-bit, increased the sampling time, and expanded the sequencing and editing options.
The 3000 was such a fun machine to use because it was so real time. My focus was always on creating great grooves, because a great groove is the essence of rhythmic music.
When I got my hands on the MPC 3000, after I had been using SP1200 and messed around with the 60, the 3000 really changed how I made music, because it was a kind of almost an all-in-one production box.
I've been a student of Roger's
his hair?
pretty much since the beginning of my career.
Either that's old or he grew his hair back.
I got an internship when I was like 15, 16 at the Cutting Room Studios in Manhattan. And I got to watch all these guys coming in and out, and they're all using MPC 3000s, 60s. And I'm like, all right, I guess that's what I need to use.
And then there was Dilla, a producer who used the MPC in a way that made people rethink what programmed drums were supposed to sound like.
I'm leaving the club. I'm hearing the vibration of the kick drum, and it's the most life-changing moment I ever had. Whereas this part is normal, it sounded like the kick drum was played by like a drunk 3-year-old. And so it's like, and I was like, what the hell is that? The next day in Atlanta, I'm asking him, like, yo, what was that drunken song that y'all were playing? Like, what was that? He said, oh, yeah, it's bullshit. It was produced by JD.
Jay Dilla was marvelous. He used swing and quantization and lack of quantization in ways that I never would have imagined. When I first would hear Dilla recordings, I'd think, it sounds like a bad drummer. Then people were playing with the exact style of bad drumming. But it was actually just a new style. And it actually, I listen to it now, I think that's a great groove.
Dilla's MPC 3000 now sits in the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, which says a lot about what this machine became. Over time, the MPC took on almost mythical status in hip-hop.
The reason that people think the MPC sound good is because of the work of these people, the artists, who created music with them. And so people, then they hear these sounds and they say, oh, that sounds good. Well, I think they're thinking of the songs that you've all created. And it reminds them of a good feeling they had because of the quality of the music.
In 2011, Roger Linn was given a technical Grammy for his contribution to music recording. But his real legacy is much bigger than an award. His machines passed through completely different eras of music. The LM-1 helped shape Prince's early 80s funk. The LinnDrum became part of the sound of 80s pop, R&B and dance music. And the MPC became one of the defining instruments of hip-hop. But underneath all of that was the same idea. Roger was a musician turned designer. He understood that a drum machine could not just be a box of sounds. It had to feel playable, it had to respond to musicians, and it had to leave enough room for artists to take it somewhere he never could have imagined.
As a product designer, I like to use an expression.
It looked like on the cool. Roger Linn, freaking drumming skills was on fleek on the cool.
I can make the brush, but it's the artist who decides what to paint with it.
Thanks so much for watching. If you want more from the Behind the Records series...
This was a good episode to watch right here, though, man. This was cool, yo. Yo, shout out to Roger Linn, man. Definitely, again, it's low-key inspirational as well, too. Other than that, if you like my reaction on this, like, share, subscribe on my YouTube channel. It's your boy T-Bar Son, and all from love.